The blueprint was drawn before you could hold a pen. Welcome to Quantum Wealth Lab. Before the conscious mind formed its first opinions about money, before you could reason about earning, saving, spending, or building, a financial identity was being constructed around you. Not maliciously, not by people who wished you harm, by people who were themselves working from blueprints they had inherited, passing on the architecture that was passed to them. A parent's silence at the kitchen table when the bills arrived. The phrase repeated so often it became invisible. We can't afford that. The specific tension that moved through a household when money was short, a quality of anxiety that a child absorbs without words, without understanding, without any capacity to evaluate or reject. That tension became a subconscious signature. This is what money means. This is what money does. This is whether money is safe or dangerous, whether wanting more of it is allowed, whether people like us are the kind of people who build wealth. This session is shadow work, and that word, shadow, does not mean darkness in the sense of danger. In psychological terms, shadow simply means what we cannot see because it is behind us. The blueprint is behind you. The beliefs formed in childhood are behind you. They are not in your line of sight, but they have been directing your movement. Every earning decision, every pattern around spending, every moment you pulled back from something large because some quiet, old voice said, "Not for us, not this much, not yet." This session turns you gently around, not to blame the people who built the original structure, not to relive the pain, but to see the blueprint clearly for the first time, to recognize it as something that was made, and therefore something that can be remade, and to begin the redesign from the foundation. Move slowly through this one. It is worth sitting still for. You are not the architecture you inherited. Say that slowly, as if it is the first time it has been permitted to be true. You are not your parents' money story. You are not the financial identity that was constructed around you before you had the language to question it. You are not the sum of every "we can't afford that," and every anxious silence and every belief about what people like you are allowed to have. You are the person standing inside that architecture, looking at the walls, recognizing for the first time that walls can be moved. The neuroscience of belief formation is clear on this. The beliefs that govern our behavior most powerfully are the ones absorbed earliest, before the prefrontal cortex could evaluate and question them. Which means the most powerful financial beliefs in your system were installed before you were old enough to consent, before you could say, "Wait, is that actually true? Let me examine that." That is the inheritance, not your fault, not a personal failure, a developmental reality shared by every human being. And here is the second truth, equally important. What is learned can be unlearned. What was installed without your consent can be examined with your consent and replaced with something you have deliberately chosen. The architecture of your financial identity is not a fixed property of who you are. It is a set of beliefs that were placed under specific circumstances, and this session begins the work of placing different ones in their position. I am not the architecture I inherited. I am the architect. I build from here. Beneath the wound, there is a blueprint that was never installed. This is the one you would have chosen if you had been offered the choice. The financial identity that believes, not as a desperate wish, but as a calm, settled fact, that money is available to you, that it moves toward people who are ready to receive it. That abundance is a normal condition, not a prize for exceptional behavior or extraordinary sacrifice. Feel into that version of reality for a moment. Not the version you were raised in, the version you have been slowly choosing your way toward since the first time you sensed the gap between what you were handed and what was possible. In this version, money is not a source of tension at the kitchen table. It is a resource, something that flows with the rhythm of a well-managed life. There is enough. There has always been enough in the reality you are now choosing to inhabit. Not because the numbers were always large, but because the relationship was always healthy. Calm, matter of fact. The adults in your imagined foundation had a clean relationship with money. They spoke about it without lowering their voices. They made decisions without the particular shadow that money carries in families navigating scarcity. And they passed to you a belief that is now becoming true in real time. Money is a tool, not a threat. Money is mine to work with, not mine to fear. Feel that world. Let your nervous system register it as not only possible, but inevitable. The action in shadow work is not forward motion. It is backward witnessing. Here is the practice for this block. Gently bring your attention to your earliest clear memory of money. Not the most painful one, simply the first one that surfaces when you give yourself permission to look. The moment you first understood, in whatever way a child understands, that money was something complicated, something your family had feelings about. Hold that memory at a slight distance, the way you might hold a photograph. You are not inside the memory. You are looking at it from the safe vantage of the present, with the full capacity of the adult you have become. What did that child conclude? About what money means, about whether wanting more of it was safe, about whether people like them were allowed to build and accumulate and expand, about what would happen if they asked for things, or needed things, or had opinions about money out loud. Hold that conclusion gently. Do not argue with it. Do not dismiss it. Simply see it clearly and with the compassion of someone who understands that the child did the only thing available. They made sense of their environment with the tools they had at the time. And then gently say to that conclusion, "Thank you, you were trying to keep me safe. I understand you now, and I am updating you." That is the action. One witnessed belief met with compassion, released into revision. The child who adapted deserves your gratitude. This is not a small thing. The capacity a child has to metabolize financial stress, to normalize scarcity, to develop the emotional range required to navigate a household where money is a source of tension. That capacity kept you functional. It allowed you to remain attached to the people you depended on even while they were under financial duress. It let you be a child, in some fundamental way, even while something in you was quietly learning to manage the anxiety in the room. That child was resilient beyond measure. And now you are here, in this session, beginning the process of releasing the adaptive patterns that served survival and no longer serve expansion. The healthy way to do that, the way that works at the level of the nervous system, which is where these patterns live, is not to condemn what adapted. It is to honor it. To say, what you did was extraordinary. You made it work. And because you made it work, I am here now, with enough stability and enough distance from the original wound to choose something different. Thank you to the child who survived. Thank you to the patterns that kept the system running. Thank you to every difficult moment that taught something true about resilience, about adaptation, about the incredible human capacity to find a way through. The gratitude is real, and the release that follows it is also real. You are not betraying your past by building a different future. You do not need to earn the right to redesign. One of the subtler resistances in shadow work is the belief that updating your financial identity requires first proving the original design was wrong, or proving you have suffered enough from it, done enough therapy, developed enough understanding. The belief that there is a threshold of self-knowledge you must cross before you are simply allowed to choose differently. There is no such threshold. There is no committee reviewing your readiness. There is no required duration of examination that qualifies you to release what no longer serves and install something that does. You are allowed to update your beliefs about money right now, not after you have fully traced the origin of every limiting pattern, not after you have processed every childhood memory. Right now, in this session, with the amount of awareness you currently have, which is already more than enough for this work. The redesign does not require perfection. It does not require a complete accounting of how you arrived here. It requires only the willingness, the simple, quiet, revolutionary willingness, to say, the old architecture no longer reflects who I am choosing to be, and I am choosing right now to build something different. That willingness is what worthiness looks like in this work. It is not grand, it is not performed. It is the quiet turning of a key in a lock you did not know you were holding. You have always held the key. This session is simply the first time you have used it. Step forward into the version of you who has been living from the new blueprint for a year. Not a transformed, unrecognizable person. The same history, the same relationships, the same life, but with a different baseline. A financial identity that was built by you deliberately from the inside out, not inherited, chosen. In this version, money conversations do not carry the charge they once carried. The anxiety response that used to fire when you checked your balance, the low-grade dread, the physical brace, has been replaced by something quieter. Something that resembles the relationship a capable adult has with a tool, attentive, competent, and without drama. You still face financial challenges. That is not what has changed. What has changed is the identity you bring to those moments, the subconscious reference point that determines how quickly you stabilize, how clearly you think, how readily you access the options available to you. That reference point is no longer the child's architecture. It is yours. You built it in sessions like this one. You updated it belief by belief, memory by memory, pattern by pattern. And the result, quiet, profound, real, is a nervous system that processes money differently. That does not contract at the thought of expansion. That does not sabotage arrival, because arrival was not in the original blueprint. You built this, it belongs to you. No one can inherit it back. Bring together everything this session has moved. You entered with a blueprint that was built for you. You are leaving with the awareness that it was built, which is the essential first step in building something different. You have witnessed the child who adapted, honored their work, and begun the process of updating the conclusions they drew with the clarity of an adult who has access to more information and more choice. The subconscious does not update completely in a single session. You know this. It updates incrementally, with each return, each reinforcement, each quiet moment of choosing the new identity over the familiar one. What this session has installed, at the level where it matters, is the beginning of a new architecture. The foundation stones of a financial identity that was chosen, not inherited. That is not a small thing. For most people, the inherited blueprint runs completely unchallenged for an entire lifetime. The fact that you are here, that you chose to look, to witness, to begin the redesign, places you in a different category. Not superior, simply awake. The scarcity architecture is not who you are. It is what you were given. And what you were given can be returned, gently, with gratitude for the service it provided, and replaced with something that actually reflects the person you have chosen to become. The redesign has begun. It continues every time you return. Until next time, keep expanding. Before you close this session, I want you to do one thing. Write down or speak aloud, or simply hold clearly in working memory the one financial belief from your childhood that you are choosing to update today. Not a list, one belief, the most foundational one. The one that, if replaced with something expansive and true, would change the most about how you move through financial decisions. You do not need to know how to replace it yet. That comes with time and with returning to this work. You only need to name it, to bring it out of the shadow and into the light of your conscious attention. Because what is seen can be worked with. What is named no longer has the particular power that unnamed things carry. Name it. And then, when you are ready, share it in the comments, because the community question for this series is, what is the earliest financial belief you inherited that you are ready to update? Your honesty may be the exact mirror someone else needs to recognize their own. If this session reached something real in you, subscribe and share it with someone who is doing the inner work, Who is ready to look at the blueprint and choose something different? This content exists because the inherited architecture is not permanent, and everyone deserves access to that knowledge. Until next time, keep expanding.